Okay, everybody, we're with Jerry Parker, very famous turtle trader out here today. We're very excited to have him. I've definitely have looked up to Jerry and a lot of the trend following traders for many years. It's always been a pleasure to read and learn more about trend following. And, that's what we do here. We'd like to talk about trend following. So without any more, let's get into Jerry Parker. How are you today, Jerry?
I'm great. I'm in Tampa, Florida today, and my bird is flying around, so she can be a little noisy.
Oh, we got lots of animals on this show, so don't worry. I have two Chihuahuas and they're nuts and they have a tendency of just coming into the frame at all times. So no worries.
I used to feel bad on podcasts because the birds would be noisy, and but then people got to like them so much, and they would be very worried if they didn't hear the birds. What happened to the birds? Are they okay? The birds are great. There's two of them. They're both cockatiels, and they keep me company throughout the day.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, trend following can become a very boring trading strategy at times. So it's always nice to have animals around hanging out with us. That's for absolute sure.
Yep.
So hopping into it, you started as a turtle trader. Knowing a little bit about your background, you were reading through, I think it was Wall Street Journal, and you found a job that was looking for traders. And so can you go through that a little bit? I know you've gone through it a bunch of times, but just to touch on it real fast for people that don't know.
Sure. So 1983, I was working in Richmond, Virginia in public accounting. And I was pretty sure that I wanted to, not be in public accounting for my career. And I had started reading books and magazine articles about trading and trend and watching Wall Street Week. Marty Zweig was on Wall Street Week, and he was kind of a trend follower. And I would scrape together, $100 to buy his newsletter and read and follow along and try to understand what was going on. And so luckily I just saw an ad in the Wall Street Journal in probably the summer of 83, fall of 83. And Richard Dennis, a famous commodity trader in Chicago, wanted to hire people and train them how to trade commodities using his systematic approach, and then give them money to manage. And that sounded really good to me. And I knew it was legit because I had read an article about Richard Dennis in a Business Week magazine or something. And so I knew it was a great would be a great learning experience. And I would learn things that from really smart people that I probably would never have learned from other, anywhere else in Richmond, Virginia, or just working as a broker or something. And I was correct. I was one of, maybe 20 people who got an interview. I think they had 1,000 people applied. And I went to Chicago for the interview and was hired and moved to Chicago in December of 1983. And we did have a 2-week course on trading and statistics and math and psychology, how to trade and how to survive in the future. And then in January the 2nd, 1984, we were given $1 million each and we started trading. So it was a very fortunate situation. I had no reason to expect to have such good fortune, but to some degree I was ready, and I knew that I should love trend following and that I had a lot to learn.
That's awesome. I think it's one thing that people could go through life forever trying to find something. And I've always found your story kind of interesting because you were kind of into what you're doing. I think you mentioned accounting, and it kind of felt a little mundane to you. And then you kind of come into this and you're already kind of learning about this a little bit. I think you mentioned before Martin Zweig, and some of these people that you kind of had a little bit of an understanding of it, to the point where you had a high score on the test. And so basically, you're finding this thing that you kind of like to do, and then you kind of find these amazing people to kind of learn from. And I think that's really like that's the thing that kind of separates people in life is when a lot of people have opportunities, right? But not a lot of people are willing to really jump into an opportunity as you did. And you kind of fully jumped into it and then learning these methods. So how much did you know that it was going to be a trend following thing? Did you know that there was going to be systematic or trend following beforehand?
I don't think I knew that. I should have been able to figure that out, but I didn't figure it out. I because the test was heavily laden with trend following questions, and I just sort of guessed and went with it and hope, crossing my fingers that I would be able to do well on the test, anticipating that it was trend based. And so I got lucky in that regard because that's all I knew and all I really cared about.
Yeah.
So often over the years, people will talk about talking to clients, and clients don't understand. They don't like trend following. They just need to be better educated. I was learning trend following on my own with no help. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I loved it. I've only loved it more as every day passes. Longs and shorts, rule based. It's objective, massive diversification. So I was really interested in safety and protecting capital along with making money. So
yes,
I thought it was just the greatest thing ever. And I was very happy when I got up there and they told me, yeah, you did really well on the test. And that's the reason, because I just said, to hell with it. Hopefully they're trend followers.
No, that's and I think it's some of those questions I found I think Covell put up a questionnaire out of a lot of the questions that were on those tests. And it's very interesting to think that they're so like certain questions of how much do you know about the markets? Like, normally, like if you get a job somewhere, people think they want you to hire an expert. Normally people would say, 99% because they want to sound very intelligent and smart in that aspect. But then you have something like this where it's the opposite. You really don't know anything. You kind of want people to have that humility to come in there. So I always found it very interesting, the people he hired. And I think a lot of it too is the people who seriously seem to succeed in trend following seem to have a personality type that it really fits well. And I think that's also a very important thing. Did you notice that a lot of the people kind of had that mindset? Could you kind of see that their personality types would either fit or didn't fit? I've never heard much about, did you guys ever have to get rid of anybody or anything like that, or get rid of any traders?
Well, true. I mean, I think that people were, were realizing what a great guy Rich was, and he was literally changing people's lives from making $25,000 a year to, making hundreds of thousands and more, based on the bonus we got as we were trading. But so people were loyal to him, and they would say, just follow the rules we've given you, and if you follow the rules, then you'll be fine, even if you lose money. But if you don't follow the rules, you may be in trouble, even if you do make money. So it was this pretend atmosphere and environment that doesn't exist in the real world. They were giving us every opportunity to just to do the right things and follow the rules without regard to worrying about losing money. And I can tell you that doesn't exist in the real world. Clients will definitely choose to make money over, the merits of doing things the right way in the long run. But even with a lot of people in that room, the turtle room, a lot of people struggled with following the rules. And I think I was a little surprised by it. I mean, it wasn't necessarily maybe struggling to follow the rules, in a sense that it takes practice to put your fate in the hands of rules, and it's unnatural. And so after you do it for a while, it becomes more comfortable. It wasn't so much that, which maybe everybody kind of struggled with, except a couple of people, but it was just they didn't like the rules. And I was like the rules. These are Rich's rules. Rich gave them to me. He's a genius. And he gave me the money. The least I could do is follow the rules and do the trades. And the rules are fine. If they weren't fine, he would not have given them to us. He would have given us more rules. But I see that like every day in my life. People say, why don't you start a new trading program? Why don't you start your own turtle program? Why don't you help me like Richard Dennis helped you? Like they'll try to shame me into it. But if you talk to them long enough on Twitter or an email, they'll basically say to me, oh, you're wrong. You're not doing it correct.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? So I had this idea that I was going to suck up information from Rich, from Bill, from people I met after that over the years and try to learn and just assume, that, hey, maybe some of these people have a good idea and I should listen to them and not just write it off. And never would I write it off because it was hard to do.
Yes.
I really thought, and they would just hammer on us like, trading is hard, desire it to be hard. Choose ideas that are hard to implement. They go against your human nature. And this is successful trading. That's the characteristic of a good trading rule. You hate it. And yet, people I meet today, not just millennials, not just young people, 20s and 30s. No, it's people my age. They'll argue with me like, I like smooth returns. And so I deserve to have smooth returns. I want the market to give me the money on my terms. And I really am just dumbfounded by this attitude. Not so much people looking at me and saying, you're wrong about what you're doing, and I can do it my way. And it doesn't matter if I use your way or my way, which I'm going to use my way, but everything is created equal, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, people. What are you doing?
Oh man, that's funny. It's really true, and clients are very tough to deal with because I could have a month where I'm down, or a quarter even, have a quarter that's down, and I could feel great about that quarter because I followed my rules, I implemented my strategy, I did the right thing every single day because I know in the long run I'm going to do well by doing that. For them, that's the end of the world. They might be, bothering me a little bit too much, something. And then if you kind of get to that next quarter, and let's say you have a great quarter, and every day you've done the best thing ever, you're saving the world, it's totally, it's crazy to really think about the differences in that little bit. And so it's also funny, the rules are so important, like you mentioned, like, if you can kind of follow your own plan, it comes to that, there's good bets and bad bets thing. You can still have a good trade or a good trade that loses money. Whereas a lot of people feel like the only good trades are the ones that make money. You're following your plan, you're taking these small losses, that's how you get to where you're moving over time.
Yeah. I mean, as hard as it is, that is kind of one of the unusual things we keep saying. I think people like shake their head like, what the hell are you talking about? And that is for a systematic trader, you don't really grade yourself based upon your profit and loss.
Yes.
You grade yourself on, did you follow the system? Now, if you've gone 5 years and you've never made money,
yeah.
So maybe you have to readjust, but you get my point. You've got a good system. It's going to take small losses. It's going to have a 60% losing trades. It's totally relying upon 5% of the trades being very large and making all of the money. So it's a really funky, crazy equation that's no one should really like unless they're just a total masochist. Yet, it's almost everyone can have success at it. I mean, to fail, you really have to screw up, at this. It may be difficult to be a quant or trade short term, or I don't know, maybe even be value or growth. I don't know about those two, but it's almost impossible to not succeed with medium to long-term trend following unless you just don't follow the more obvious rules. And the fewer the rules, the better. It's not even like you have to sit there and say, well, I only have 5 rules, I need 50 rules. No, you need like 2 or 3.
Yes.
And you can't really log on to a podcast, at least the ones I do, and not come away with a really good idea of what you should be doing. And so that is my contribution. Those are the Turtle programs, the Top Traders Unplugged podcast, your podcast. I'm on Spaces, Twitter Spaces every Friday morning at 8:00 a.m.
Yeah.
So essentially, when people complain about me not giving back, they just want me to give them money to manage.
It's true. And you just, for myself, my journey into understanding trend following is just picking it up. And I remember also, being younger and reading something like a Market Wizards and being like, none of these guys are giving us the real things. Like, what do they really do? And I think sometimes people still are in that mentality when they watch things like, what do they really do? And it's really, like you just said, it's a few rules, it's back testing, it's following the plan. Like, that's really almost it. Yeah, granted, there's different things, there's different parameters, but once again, it's just, as long as you're doing those basics and kind of understanding that, you can build on everything else. And even trends, most of the time our trend models are pretty identical. If we're a longer term trend system, it's going to be pretty identical, maybe a few days apart of buys, maybe a few days apart in sells, but there's many ways to do this, many ways to build different systems. I like a breakout strategy, some people don't. There's all different types of ways to do it.
That's right. And in my trend following systems, I trade 4 breakout systems, and they're just different in terms of holding periods and look back. But over a 20-year period, all 4 systems make about the same amount of money. So it's good to have different parameters to get out at different points on these big trades, but they're all kind of created equal. So that's really comforting to know that if you can only trade one system, you may not handle the trade, some of these big trends as well as you would if you could trade more than one system, have more than one exit.
Yes,
but over a long period of time, you're going to make about the same amount of money. I mean, you just really can't beat that, in my opinion. It's a very, very comforting fact.
Yeah, that smooth returns. And speaking of which, something you and I have in common is I don't vol target. I know you've mentioned that before. I've tried to talk to people about, why exactly I don't do that. And it seems to always kind of get a lot of pushback. And I was wondering, how did you kind of come to the understanding that you weren't going to vol target positions? You're not going to shave them down as they grow. I could think, back to maybe the Turtle program started that or whatever, but how did you come to that?
That's right. That's the way I was sort of raised in the Turtle program, and some people listening are laughing now because your characterization of, you've heard me talk about it, they're going like, that's all he ever talks about. So it's really a violation of the principles of good trend following. The cliche of take small losses and let your profits run. You're going to protect your capital with these small losses, and you're going to let these profits run and try to hit some mega home runs, not just nice home runs, but huge home runs. And so, people don't like that volatility. They don't like waiting for that trading stop to get hit. It's giving back too much profit. Just holding on to winning trades is the hardest thing in the world for anybody to do in the trading sciences. So I meet with people all the time, and I say to them, I know you're like me, you have a heart. You get out of these big winning trades too quickly. You got out of Apple, after it doubled the first time, and they're like all shaking their head.
Yeah.
Then it's just a sad situation where most of the current CTAs, they do this volatility management, and they say, oh, we hold on to profits. We don't get out too quickly. We just manage the risk. And it's just the same thing. they want to call it something else, but it's a way for them to get out of profits quicker. And they say, well, it's a rule. So, if you have a rule, no matter how crazy or bogus it is, understand that makes it okay because we're rule based. And we did the back test. And it's all these ridiculous explanations for not letting your profits run. It's scary. If you want to make good money and if you want to participate in these outliers to the maximum, it's not easy. And that's the shortcut that most of them have taken. But honestly, it's not risk. It's not proper risk control. It's not achieving what they say it achieves, because if you cut these profits short and you don't maximize the win, then at some point later in your career, in the next year or two, you'll be really sorry that you don't have that profit to fall back on. And whenever you take small losses, I'm sorry, whenever because they're making less money on some of these big trades than me, for instance, they have to trade larger.
Yeah.
So, they have to trade a bit larger. Their losses are a bit larger. It's a systematic approach that has 60% losing trades. So I never felt comfortable with an approach that that required me to trade larger and take larger losses. By not doing that vol management, we shift that from the losing trades to the open trades and allow it more volatility when we can most afford it. So I know it's not cool, but in the managed futures and CTA industry has pretty much turned their back on what I would consider to be classic trend following, but it will have its day in order to be proved to be the right way to trade in due course, because I think we're back to a period now where trend following and more traditional approach is going to do really well, like it did prior to like 2010 or so.
Yeah. I mean, I don't vol target either. I feel exactly the same way as you, whereas, you basically you're giving and taking, basically. Instead of me kind of sitting there and letting something run to that degree, I'm gonna shave it. And then also my losers might be a little bigger because I have to make a little bit more. And just back testing it, when I back tested it was really I've always kind of been that way. Maybe it's my personality type. But when I back tested and really looked at would I be better off doing it this way, the answer was absolutely not. Back testing absolutely told me that yes, sometimes I might be able to hold on to a little bit more profits, but most of the time that wasn't true. And then on top of it, these big things that we're all kind of looking for, the outlier trades, those are kind of null and void at that point, which kind of brings us to the next point, which is you've mentioned before, like hunting for outliers. That's kind of the general thing of trend following trading. That's what we're doing every single day. So where did you come up with that idea? Because I heard you say hunting for outliers, and I was like, that is so spot on. Where did you kind of think of that idea? How did that kind of come into your trading style?
Well, once again, everything I know pretty much came from Richard Dennis and Bill Eckhart. And we were always concentrating on these outliers and taught that that's the way it's going to work. It's going to be a non-normal distribution with fat tails, and 5 or 10% of your trades are going to make all the money. But like with most good ideas, I copied that hunting outliers from someone else. Richard Brennan, who is on the Top Traders Unplugged podcast, and he's on my spaces a lot. And he has one of the best trend following minds I've ever met before. So he's my second Rich after Richard Dennis, and he and I have collaborated a lot on back and forth discussing the philosophy of trend following. Even though it seems fairly simple or it doesn't have a lot of moving parts, it still is a pretty deep subject. And I love obsessing over the subject and trying to learn more. And find new ways of explaining it and understanding it, just to encourage myself and to make it more understandable for possible clients. But yeah, that's really the thing. And it's really in contrast to, I trade 200 markets and currencies, commodities, stocks, bonds, long, short. So, Jerry, you must really be interested in diversification in a smooth portfolio. And I'm like, yeah, but, I love the diversification, but I don't vol manage. So sometimes these positions can get out of whack. Coffee and orange juice and cotton now they become outsized positions because the volatility every day is so large.
Yes.
So my bottom line is finding these outliers, staying in there, following my rules, and maximizing the profits in those outliers. So I do not place diversification at the highest goal here, which is essentially what other vol management CTAs are kind of saying. Like, we prize diversification. And I wanted to say a couple of things on what you said earlier, which is you cannot make more money by adding a different second, third, and fourth rule to your exits. You don't make more money. That's why when they do this vol management or have another exit based upon profit in the trade or whatever, it doesn't make more money. That's why they have to revert to Sharpe ratio and risk adjusted returns, because it makes less money. So then they say, well, we're going to maximize our Sharpe or something. And that gives the illusion of a better system and the illusion of making more money, but you're really not making more money. And so I could go on and on about this for hours and hours, and I have. So
I love it.
It's a great topic, but some people see it, like you see it, I see it, and I feel like sometimes, why are we wasting our time arguing with these people? They know what they're doing. And these are, I think, a category of people that really need to choose a trading system based upon their personality and something that they can implement and that they can follow. So for me, I try to just trade something that's really hard to do and force myself and train myself to follow those rules. And so other people have to do it a different way.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And kind of, just on that subject, it's things like this can help so many people kind of learn and understand a bunch of different ways. And what you're saying earlier, sharing all of this knowledge and kind of simplifying and digging into the philosophy of trend following. I think that's also important because so many people just can't do it. They can. I think everybody's capable, but they don't understand how to really jump into it. For example, you could say, I've been doing this for this long. You could put it on every rule you have on a billboard on the highway, and most likely most people will not stick to that system. Why is that? If you back test most people, and then there's another percentage where people who could back test this and they actually do back test it, and then they start doing it, the second they start losing money, they drop off too. So it's more of a personality type, psychology behind these traders and so on, that is so interesting to me. Even a lot of us even have a lot of things very in common with each other.
But they don't say, it's my fault, it's my problem, I can't do it.
Yes.
They don't say that as much as they say, I can do it my way. There's a feature in this trade. I like the system. The back test is amazing. It tells me I can make a lot of money going forward. But it had this one problem trade in 2011, and I don't like that drawdown. I need to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Well, this is one of the problems with trend following, quote unquote problems. And that is, we're doing the right thing today, because if we did it for 20 or 30 years in the future, we're going to be good. We're going to be set for life. But we don't have the ability to maximize the current trade. Well, you know, the current trade is what I'm really concerned about. I
Yes.
need that money. The clients want that money. They're not going to be happy if we don't get out of this crude trade, you know, near the highs. And you're saying to them, no, no, we're sacrificing any one particular trade in the moment for knowing that over a long period of time, implementing these rules will ensure or give us a high likelihood of doing really, really well. And I think that's where the rubber meets the road, is that how there's nothing, we all agree that there's nothing kind of psychologically more important than this current trade. It's just that no one knows what to do with this current trade, and the law of large numbers allows you to profit over time in your career. You'll end up close to being number one, but honestly, it's just not good enough.
Yes. No,
It's a bad story.
that's well said.